Greetings. Welcome back. It's Judy and Sara and Sandy with me here. We're going to talk about the power of our emotions and what they have to do with our confidence. Today, I've been doing some research again. I was a research scientist, and I remember the science of Candace Pert. She was an MD in the 70s who was the first one to discover the opiate receptor. And that kind of led to this whole field of endocrinology. And it's basically the study of how our bodies and minds are connected. And she, bottom line, wrote a book called The Molecule of Emotions or The Molecules of Emotion. And the undigested emotions that we feel, the ones that haven't been processed or talked out or tapped out, are the ones that are holding us back, because we are this body, mind, spirit of full potentiality that we come in as, and then people tell us otherwise and we believe it. And it's just what we want to talk about is undoing this untruth of who we are, and potentially feeling our feelings. I think while tapping is a great way to process them. They can be moving along pretty quickly so that you can remove the negativity and insert the positivity. And that's what we're about. We're about inserting the positivity, I guess. So you guys have thoughts on this as well. I'd love to hear them.
We don't know who's going to. Well, I know that a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't feel this or you shouldn't feel that. Well, feelings are meant, that's why they're called feelings and emotions, that you're supposed to feel them. And you don't avoid them. If you avoid them, they'll just kind of manifest into other things. And I'm sure that Judy and Sara would agree that, for instance, if you have a feeling of fear, if you don't process that feeling of fear, you don't know why you're afraid and you can't move past that. So I think that's the biggest thing that I learned a long time ago, was that you can't avoid how you feel. You can't avoid an emotion. You have to identify it, express it, and learn to cope with it. And most people get stuck in that process because they're not quite sure how to express it in a proper, positive way.
Right. Rather than just venting on anybody and everybody.
On Facebook.
Yeah, there you go. That's a place. Or my MO was always the opposite direction. I would just clam up. And
that was me.
Yeah, and they just don't get processed. You get mad, but it seethes inside of you. Yeah.
I definitely agree. I think that we're conditioned to believe that we don't have any kind of control over our feelings. Our feelings are, the most real thing that we have, but we have more control over them than I think we do. Because the mind and the body is connected, and a lot of the time when we're feeling an emotion, we're focusing on something, which then means we have the same feeling. Our feelings are always in alignment with our thoughts, aren't they? So, if I was to say to you right now, can you think of something that would make you happy, or can you think of something that would make you sad or angry? We can change our emotions if we change our focus, can't we? Mm-hmm. So I think that's also something to really remember, and to start being aware of how am I feeling today. Start checking in with how you're feeling, and observation is a skill. We're not really taught it that much, but if we start to do it more and more, it's going to become second nature. But start to check in with how am I feeling today, why am I feeling this way, and identifying them. And yeah, I think it's essential. And we were talking about emotional intelligence the other week, weren't we, Judy? And it is about that. It's learning your feelings are here to give you a message. So just listen. They're not here to hurt you unless you act on them in a negative way. You can just listen to them and ask what the message is, and sort of listen and learn and change what you're focusing on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I think it's important too to remember that sometimes your feelings are not facts. Sometimes you may feel a certain way because of a situation and you're looking at it in an incorrect way. You know, we can be fearful when we're not really facing anything that should be fearful. And you have to ask yourself, is what I'm feeling, just like you challenge your thoughts, you challenge your feelings as well. Well, why am I feeling this? And sometimes you're maybe looking at the situation a little differently than you should. And so you can't always say that what you're feeling is a fact and you have to challenge it. I think that's a big thing too that people kind of forget, you know.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I think the other thing as well, we also have familiar feelings, don't we? We kind of have like a default setting where it's a natural feeling we go back to. You know, if you're driving and then somebody cuts you up in the road, your natural response, without logically thinking, maybe to scream or shout or have road rage, we call it in England. But we have kind of like a default setting of how of an instant emotional reaction we have to something. And you know, it's interesting because if we're struggling with low self-esteem, when was the last time we felt empowered? When was the last time we felt confident? And those feelings of confidence, they're unfamiliar to us because we don't ever experience them. They're unfamiliar, so we need to kind of make the feelings that we want to feel more familiar. You know what I mean? And stop making
Mhm.
negative emotions the familiar ones. Let's just change our default setting a little bit with that, because we do get used to our default setting of emotions. So
Yeah, it takes work to change them. It takes
yeah,
awareness, first of all, that you're not these feelings. You are more than your feelings.
mm,
And that's the first step. You know, I've known several people who've been depressed, and I think I was probably in some level of depression when I was about to go through a divorce. And it was continuing to focus on the things that went wrong. And there were plenty of things that went right, but I wasn't thinking about them or focusing on them at the time.
mm,
And it just kind of got me into a rut.
mm,
And what worked for me was tapping, certainly, step two, and or getting outside or going for a run, because then your endorphins kick in, your natural mood elevators kick in, and you sort of open, like a light turns on and you can see the lighter side of life, I guess.
yeah,
So just to know that it takes practice and it takes repetition and hearing these videos, you know, regularly. And that's why we're doing them regularly.
yeah. It's also important to us to look at the things that are making you feel a negative way. It's always the meaning. It's not the thing that makes you feel a negative emotion. It's the meaning you give the thing that gives you that emotion. And we can change the meaning of anything at any time. So a negative meaning is going to give you a negative emotion, and a positive meaning is going to give you a positive emotion. So if something happens to you, just change your perception on it. It's going to change how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to remember too that sometimes emotions run in packs. And what I mean by that is you may be in a situation, the first emotion may be fear, then it turns to anger, then it turns to sadness, or there's just, you have to understand that when you have emotions and you're feeling them, one, they're valid, they're a valid emotion, and they don't mean that you're out of control. So many people think when they feel their emotions that, oh my god, I'm so emotional, I'm out of control. You're not. It's your body expressing a reaction to something that it sees or the situation that you're in. And like Sara said, you have to, if it's a negative situation, you have to kind of look at for the positive in that situation. Does that mean you'll always immediately turn from negative to positive? No. Like Judy said, it takes time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
process. But the thing is just remember, you're going to sometimes go through a huge amount of emotions, especially when it's maybe a tragedy or something that you're having to deal with. And that doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means that your body is trying to cope the best way it knows, and it's going to go through the emotions until it finds one that fits the situation.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that can be emotionally out of control, but that doesn't mean, just because you go from one emotion to another, doesn't mean you're losing control of yourself.
Good point. And sometimes it triggers a past event. You keep getting presented with a certain situation. Maybe it was the first time that was traumatic, and you keep remembering that, and you keep reacting in the same way you reacted the first time. And I think that it's just a way for your body, mind to keep telling you that this is something that needs to be addressed, needs to be looked at. And I had my favorite story is these 7 women that came through my life over time that acted exactly like my mother. They were critical, and they were pushing every time they would push me, and I just didn't get it. So I had to have 7 of these women come through, until the last one I just went, wow, time to let go of this. And they all had exactly the same hair color and short curliness. It was shocking when I realized it. It took me forever. But, feeling is, it's natural. It's how we process what's happening to us, and to do it in, responsible ways is the best way, of course. But not doing it gets us sick. That's been shown by ancient medicine long ago, and that's what Candace Pert's science helped us get beyond. It happened historically, separation of church and state. The church took care of the emotions, and the scientists took care of the body, and that's what Western medicine went down the track of. Just look at the body. Now, the psychosomatic stuff, you're crazy if you think it's all in your head or whatever. It's not in your head. It's in your mind and body and soul all together. So finally, they're coming back to what the ancient people were teaching us long ago. Yeah, great.
I think pain as well. If you hold on to pain for so long, it becomes a part of who you are. If we just suppress them, it becomes a part of who we are, and then it's, the longer we have these suppressed emotions, the harder it is to let go of them, because we're scared of, who am I without this emotion? Who am I without, if you're an angry kind of person, who are you without that anger? Or who are you without being anxious or depressed or sad all the time, So it can be scary for people to look at their emotions and identify how to kind of navigate and heal through them, because they attach emotions to so much of their identity. But as you said, they're the most real things you have, and as long as you deal with them in a responsible way, which helps you, then that's the best thing you can do.
And sometimes it helps if you can identify what triggers certain emotions for you. I mean, there can be positive triggers too. I can walk in and smell chocolate chip cookies baking and think of my grandma, and it makes me happy. It calms me, because it's a good positive emotion. It's the same with negative emotions. If you get bit by a dog, every time you walk by a dog, you could get a little anxious. I mean, the thing is, you have to understand that everything starts with self-examination. And that means you got to look inside, and you got to ask yourself questions, and you got to try to find not so much a logical answer, but an answer that will at least appease your mind of why you're doing this. If you don't or can't, that's when it's time to ask for help. Ask someone that can help you. Hey, do I do this when I get angry, or do I do this when I get sad, or do I do this when I'm happy? And that doesn't mean that you don't know. It just means that you're examining yourself from the inside out, and that is so important.
Yeah, I think my experience is, upon self-examination, I also discovered, examining others' behavior, that most people are hurting in some way or have been hurt. And people either clam up like me, or they vent it on other innocent people in their family or wherever. And I think that was a big insight, that other people's opinions and behaviors didn't always have to do something with me. that was not correct English, but it's their pain that they're expressing, and to just finally be strong enough to know that I'm solid in who I am, and other people can do whatever they do now and doesn't hurt me any longer. It makes me feel more compassion for them, in fact.
Yeah, that's empowering.
Mm-hmm.
I was a venter. I would hold it in and hold it in and hold it in, and then like a volcano, I'd just explode.
Yeah.
And it was always to the wrong person. I said the wrong things, and I had to say I'm sorry a lot until I learned how to figure out how to do that. And it wasn't until I saw myself on camera one time that I realized, oh my God, and that was the moment that I realized I had a problem and I needed to change, because sometimes it takes self-examination, and I wasn't doing it. So universe has a funny way of putting it in our face, right? And that's what happened. And, I had a lot of amends to make, and I had to do that. And now I understand that sometimes if I'm feeling kind of angry about something, now, is that true? Why am I feeling this way? And is it really going to matter 5 minutes from now or an hour from now? And typically it doesn't. So, I learned to control that and know that that's a negative emotion that I don't want to feel. I'd rather be happy and have those positive vibes coming, all the time. So sometimes it's a choice. Some people, like Sara said, if they're an angry, negative person, some people thrive on that for some reason. And it takes something like what happened to me to understand that it's not right and it's not good for you.
Yeah, too much of any negative emotion will eventually make you sick. So why do it for longer than we have to? I think once we realize it, that's the first step, big light bulb, and then we can do something about it. And we've got a lot of tools.
Yeah. Dr. Jody Spencer says that the ideal is to have I think he called it a shorter refractory period from an emotion. I think that's how he says it. The shorter that we can, react to an emotion. Does that make sense? So like, if you're angry, learn to not be as angry for as long as you probably would usually. Like, shorten the time a little bit and just keep doing it more and more and more. And yeah, he said that was a great tool for people to use. But yeah, important stuff.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Always great to have these conversations, and I hope they're helpful. So let us know if there's a topic you want to have us chat about, and we'll be happy to research that.
Yeah, definitely.
Take good care, everybody. Take good care of your hearts. We're here for you. Lots of tools here. Thank you for joining us. Take care, you guys. Bye.